There's a tendency to want to make the problem go away emotionally and mentally, and when you bury things, it's easier mentally to not worry about them.
More calls to stop burying nuclear waste at the beach at San Onofre, and the people who question promises to move it all.
When people meet me for the first time, they go, "Oh, I wasn't expecting that," or "I wouldn't have guessed that," or "Are you sure?" kind of questions.
Identifying racial bias one question at a time, and the lessons learned from all the data collected. And bottoms up, why San Diego beer makers are feeling the pinch from President Trump's tariffs. KPBS Evening Edition starts right now. Good evening and thanks for joining us. I'm Ebone Monet. The major wildfire burning near Redding is now the 6th most destructive in state history. CAL FIRE has provided an update on the Carr Fire, which has burned 1,000 homes and hundreds of other buildings. Governor Jerry Brown says there's plenty of money to respond to the fire and others, but warns about the impact of climate change and the long-term outlook for fires in California.
We're in for a really rough ride, and it's going to get expensive, it's going to get dangerous, and we have to apply all our creativity to making the best out of what is going to be an increasingly bad situation.
13,000 firefighters are assigned to the Carr Fire. Help is also coming from other states and the National Guard. Was an alleged assault of a San Diego County student a case of Islamophobia? A civil rights group is calling for an independent investigation. Today, leaders of the Council on American Islamic Relations spoke out, questioning if Islamophobia motivated students at Greenfield Middle School in El Cajon to bully a classmate. Sidra, who's only being identified by her first name, says classmates targeted her for more than a year. And last March, she says 8 of them followed her home and physically attacked her, even assaulting her parents, who came to her aid. The family says the attackers pulled at the then 13-year-old's hijab and demanded that she prove that she was a legal resident. Here's a bit of what she said about the lasting impact of the incident and what the superintendent of Cajon Valley Union School says about combating bullying overall.
After these problems, I hated school and I was scared to go to school. I was frustrated to talk with people. I'm really tired of these problems. If these problems happen to my friends or to anyone, I will feel bad and I will remember all my problems that happened to me.
Kids don't bully kids they know. Kids bully the unknown. They bully what they fear. But to say that we have an anti-bullying policy is simply not enough. We have to teach kids how to engage in relationships and how to stand up for others, to be upstanders and not bystanders when these types of things happen.
CARE is calling for diversity training for all school staff. Leaders say more than half of American Muslim students report experiencing bullying based on their religious identity. A presidential order that targets so-called sanctuary cities was found unconstitutional. A lawsuit challenged the order that threatened to withhold funding from these cities. Today, the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals sided with a lower ruling that found President Trump did not have the authority to attach new conditions to the money. The Trump administration said the order applies to a small pot of money that already requires compliance with immigration law. State leaders continue to challenge a census citizenship question. Secretary of State Alex Padilla launched an online portal for Californians to submit public comment. State officials say the question will discourage immigrants from participating in the next census count.
The administration has chosen to add a citizenship question to the census in what I believe is a blatant effort to intimidate non-citizens from participating in the census. In choosing to question the citizenship of every person in America, the Trump administration is blatantly disregarding their own scientific advisors, common sense, and the United States Constitution.
The census count determines each state's representation in Congress and how much federal funding it gets. California and other states have sued to block the question from appearing on the 2020 census. A citizens group is taking on racial bias in the San Diego Police Department. KPBS reporter Claire Tragesser says recommendations may start with hiring outside the normal channels.
And as we started getting more involved, it became obvious to most of us on the board that recruiting would be a very good place to start.
Barry Pollard is helping to think of ways to diversify the San Diego Police Department. He's the chairman of the Citizens Advisory Board on Police Community Relations, which has been meeting for a year and a half. Their mission, according to the city, is to review policies, practices, and programs designed to make law enforcement sensitive, effective, and responsive.
So the consensus of the group as we're moving forward is it is easier to train someone to use a firearm than it is to teach them how to interact authentically with the community of color or community of underserved people.
The board is looking at how police officers are recruited to see if they can introduce more diversity into the force. Instead of hiring so many former members of the military,
include school teachers, include people that have worked with social agencies, just with the hope that we put enough of those folks into the system, they may think twice about pulling a gun and shooting someone.
They are also looking to change training practices and procedures within the police department. The goal is to present the recommendations to a city council committee this fall. Claire Tragesser, KPBS News.
California law enforcement agencies are now collecting information about the race and identity of the people they stop. KPBS reporter Taryn Minto explores how it can address racial profiling and what the law can teach the rest of us.
Ferguson, Missouri sparked a national conversation.
It was the summer of 2014. Michael Brown, an 18-year-old black man, had been killed by a white police officer in Ferguson, Missouri. Community members protested in the streets.
Protesters have been organized to lay down.
Months later, it was a 12-year-old African-American boy, Tamir Rice, in Cleveland. And later, a black man on Staten Island named Eric Garner. Meanwhile, here in San Diego, Assemblywoman Shirley Weber was with her son watching this all unfold on TV.
He says, Mom, you know what, we are in the streets and just raising issues, but the reality is you and Speaker Atkins have the juice. That's what exactly he said. You have the juice. He said, and you could do something about it.
She did.
It is time now that we as legislators match that energy.
The law she sponsored mandates California officers track what they think is the race, ethnicity, and other information about the people they stop. A bill to combat racial profiling that requires officers to silently judge people they stop may seem counterproductive. But Weber says this is key to identifying and addressing bias.
You look at a person and they're really multiracial, but you stop them because they look Hispanic, okay? Or you stop them because they look African American, or their head is wrapped and you think they're a Muslim. So the issue is not so much